Have you ever heard someone say, "Be careful what you pray for"? I'm Robert Stutz, and here's something to think about today. Today, I want to share something that was given to me by David Maines, a longtime presence in Christian ministry. For years, he was involved in radio ministry, and he actually had something called Chapel in the Air. Later on, I was privileged to be at several events that he provided leadership for, and it was indeed a great blessing. He's well up in his 80s now, and he and his wife Karen still have ministry through a podcast. It was on that podcast that I heard him talking about a new book he is writing on the power of prayer. And he shared an event, and I want to summarize it a little bit to help you understand what happened to him. He's in his 80s now, but this is something that happened to him, well, about 40 years ago, because he says he was in his 40s. It was a time when he prayed that God would allow him to see the world through God's eyes, to be able to hear things through God's ears. He had heard about other people who did this, and he had tried it before in the past, and he made this his prayer again. And then he tells this story. One Saturday afternoon, I began to sense something strange. My emotions seemed highly sensitized to what I was hearing. A negative comment on a phone call almost brought tears to my eyes. I heard a racist remark on television, and it deeply upset me. Finally, he asked God, "Is this you, Lord? Are you doing this?" There was no answer yet. The next day was Sunday, and David arrived at church early to visit with friends, and he says, "I heard someone make a humorous negative comment about a mutual friend, and I almost burst into tears." David Maines rushed away to the washroom and tried to control himself. "Lord, this isn't a good thing," he said. "I didn't know what I was asking for. Can you take it away?" That day he sat in the back of the sanctuary, and when people asked him what was wrong, he told them he wasn't just feeling well. Gradually, the extreme sensitivity began to fade, but David Maines says, "I knew that I would never speak so casually about sensing the presence of the Lord." Maines goes on to talk about times in countries where there was a season of revival or awakening, and it was almost always accompanied by two things at the same time. First, a wonderful, heartwarming experience of God's presence and power, but also a keen sense of what is wrong or out of sorts, or that which is negative, or that which is opposing God. As one writer put it, fire can be beautiful, but it can also be terrifying. Maines says, "I realized I was in the presence of a force beyond any of my previous experiences. The Lord was pulling back a curtain that is normally hidden, and I found myself on holy ground." We're not surprised when we read stories like this in the Bible of things that happened long ago to Bible characters, but it's a bit surprising to remember that things like this still happen. And indeed, prayer can bring us into an abiding sense of God's presence, but it can also open our eyes and ears to things we might otherwise miss. Be careful what you pray for. I hope we could indeed come to the point where we can seek after God's presence with the good that comes and with also the awareness of negativity that comes. Can God help us do that? Thanks for listening today.